So if you're watching this video, you've probably seen the big news from CW's Crisis on Infinite Earths. The DC Extended Universe is part of the DCCW Multiverse. Kind of. If you haven't seen the Crisis yet, then let me explain. Way back in 2015, Ezra Miller was campaigning for a crossover between his Flash and Grant Gustin's Flash, which at the time was just in its first season.
I think it's awesome.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think it's awesome. And come on, we're the Flash. It's parallel universes.
It's all good.
Grant Gustin is the Flash, and I'm the Flash. Don't you see? It's the event horizon. We crossed it, baby.
Fast forward 5 years, and many crossovers later, it finally happened. In the biggest crossover in the history of the CW, which brought many different live-action versions of our favorite characters together for one epic event. From Batman 66, to Titans, to the 2011 Green Lantern movie, to Christopher Reeve's Superman, all of these characters from each one of these shows and movies were brought into one single multiverse spanning decades of DC content. All of these and more, except for one, the DC Extended Universe. After the conclusion of the Crisis, many fans began questioning the DC Extended Universe's place in this whole thing. Did the actions of the CW characters save the massive DC film franchise from destruction? How were none of these characters integral in saving the multiverse? The Superman who saved the human race from Zod and stopped the Beast Doomsday? The Wonder Woman who prevented the old god Ares from subjugating the world? The Aquaman who prevented a war between Atlantis and Earth? The Justice League who stopped the new gods from conquering the entire planet? Why weren't they there to help save their own universe? Well, because their universe was never in any danger during the Crisis. As the CW Flash explains, the DC Extended Universe Flash being there should be impossible now because every other universe connected to the CW multiverse had been destroyed. So there's no way another Flash could ever show up. The CW Flash begins to mention the Crisis itself, which DC Extended Universe Flash has no clue about, meaning it was not threatening their world or had affected it in any way. But how was this possible? It seems DC Extended Universe Barry knows because as he was disappearing, he mentions that he told Victor, also known as Cyborg, that he knew it was possible. Unfortunately, he's gone before we get an explanation. Now, he may have just meant the multiverse is possible and not necessarily this weird version of it, but while I know a decent amount about the cosmology and dimensional tiering used by DC, I'm by no means an expert, which is why I've teamed up with WebCamParrot to better explain the relationship or lack thereof between the CW multiverse and the DC Extended Universe.
So, at the start of the Crisis on Infinite Earths event, we get this pretty clear explanation that the multiverse itself is infinite in size. This multiverse, that contains infinite worlds, is where we find the CW heroes that we all know so well, and where the various Earths are contained. Each Earth, or universe, is then surrounded by its own space-time bubble, and is basically lined up along with the various other universes. This higher dimensional bulk that all of the universes are lined up along is what makes up the CW multiverse. Now I just want to quickly clarify what I mean by dimension, or higher dimension, because there is a lot of misconception surrounding the term. A dimension, in this case, is a geometric term, a thing of space. A zero-dimensional object is a point. A one-dimensional object is a line. A two-dimensional object is a square. A three-dimensional object is a cube. And a four-dimensional object is what we call a tesseract or hypercube, and so on, all the way up to however many dimensions you like. Objects with more than 3 dimensions aren't really possible to display visually, so this is the best we've got. Time is not the 4th dimension in this case. It doesn't even really make sense to call time the 4th at all. It's a different thing entirely that measures the rate of change and not geometric space. These dimensions are important because in order to have a self-contained space-time along with another self-contained space-time, they have to be lined up along a new axis. If you imagine each universe as a piece of paper, then a stack of papers would be the multiverse. Eventually, during the Crisis event, we would see that it reaches a point where the infinite multiverse doesn't exist at all, as Barry hypothesizes. The group is left at the vanishing point, a place where time doesn't function as you would expect, and used to be the operations for the Time Masters. We know that both the Speed Force and the vanishing point are outside of this, as they are stated to exist outside of space and time. And we also know that the Oculus, which can view any timeline, doesn't work on the vanishing point. In other words, these two structures exist within an even higher fifth-dimensional bulk, rather than the smaller fourth-dimensional bulk of the CW multiverse that I mentioned earlier. Everything from here on is something that we see from either the vanishing point where the characters are left, or inside the Speed Force. Oliver, using the power of the Spectre, takes the group into the Speed Force. This is when the DCEU Flash appears, and, as Garrick mentioned, is completely unaware of anything involving the Crisis, nor should he even be there, as no Earths within the Infinite Crisis exist anymore. What this essentially means is that the DCEU reality is connected to the CW multiverse by the Speed Force, but does not exist within the Infinite Multiverse itself, and so should have been unaffected by both the Crisis event and the reset afterwards that merged the various Earths together.
So there you have it, the reason the DC Extended Universe will not be affected by the Crisis on Infinite Earths. The only little thing might be the Flash got his name from this crossover, but I think that's just harmless fun. What did you guys think? Let me know down below. Also, a huge thank you to WebCamParrot for the detailed explanation of the CW Multiverse. Be sure to check out his channel, all of that's going to be linked below and suggested at the end of this video. If you like the video, be sure to like and subscribe. It does really help us out. Also, be sure to check us out on all the social media that you see on screen. And remember the motto, it's Crisis on Infinite Earths over everything. And I'll see you guys next time.